क्रिप्टो कोच CoinDCX लर्न करो क्रिप्टो करो.
There is nothing like Test cricket. 46 days after it started, having delivered 25 days of a roller coaster beyond believable proportions, the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy finishes 2 apiece as India claim their narrowest win in Test history by runs to deny England their first series win over India since 2018. It's a lot to unpack. On CoinDCX presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday in the company of Steve Harmison. Harmy, there's a lot more that we'll go into, but can you just begin to summarize the emotion at the end of this test match and indeed this summer?
I mean, yeah, that was amazing. I didn't see that coming this morning. Not so much the India victory, because both sides were well in with a chance of winning that game, but the drama towards the end with Siraj and Wokes and the drop catch going for 6, it was just, and even the umpires. I even think the umpires got caught up in the emotion, because I didn't think the Overton decision was one of the greatest ones, and I even thought the Jamie Smith one. I think Kumar Dharmasima, I think he DRS'd himself there, because there was a nick behind, and I don't think he was going to give it. I don't think he heard it, because he'd roar the crowd. I think the India reaction made him think, oh, there was a nick there. And even that point, he went to the third umpire, fourth umpire, to see if it carried, which it carried quite comfortably to Juv Jurel. So I think everybody got caught up in the emotion. It's been a magnificent series, one which has had everything. Spikiness has met it. An even better series. And 2 teams, I think, should be hell of a lot. Both captains and management will be, very, very proud of their team's efforts towards what has been keeping the lights on in Test match cricket. This is a message for the ICC. The Test cricket can't be just played by the big 3. It needs to be played by, everybody in the world, because if everybody in the world got involved in this, it's the best format of the game. It's the toughest format of the game. When you watch Test series like this, I mean, it just makes you want to think, right, why are we not playing more and more, or prioritising more and more Test match cricket? Because this, for me, these last 46 days, Yash, has been absolutely box office.
Absolutely, Harmy. It is days and series like these which keep that old cliche in its currency. Cricket is the winner for the end of such a brilliant contest. And in a series where, if you think of the recurring themes and storylines, there was a lot of pacers, their workload, their management, how do they last it, how do they survive it. It is quite fitting that the star of the final hour of this series is the one pacer who managed to last the 5 series with a 30-over burst in the final chapter of a 5-test series. Mohammad Siraj, where do you begin to commend his display?
I mean, where do you begin? I mean, we always called him that sort of Duracell. There's an advert in England which it adverts the Duracell battery, and it's the Duracell bunny, and he is definitely that. I mean, he never looked like he was going to run out of steam. I think he did. Well, saying that, I think he was tired late on day 4, but I mean, he's hard, and for me, I mean, it had to be, didn't it? To see him standing along Floro at Lords, was the ball defended perfectly onto the ground, and it rolls back onto the stumps. To see the emotion of that, the emotion of hitting the sort of base of Atkinson's off stump at the Oval on day 5. I mean, it was fitting that he was the man that I think India have had to go to most to the world to ask him for that little bit of difference, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of character. And for me, that stands him apart from all the bowlers on show. He's been magnificent for India, and somebody who, were we surprised? No, because what he had to deal with Bumrah being there for 3 Test matches, you had to have one consistent. And unfortunately for England, the one consistent that we had, he gets injured in the last Test match. The one consistent that India had, he stood up more often than not. And when you have to do what you did in the last 4th innings of the game to win a game, I mean, it energizes you, as bowlers. When you see you can see the line, you can see the closing line. It energizes you, because you think, if I can get this last wicket, it means I can stop bowling. And it just seemed as though every time India got a wicket, it was closer to the line where he would run his race, and he was magnificent.
Yeah, 185.3 overs bowled over the course of these 5 test matches. It's superhuman. The word that gets used a lot is heart or character or energy. But as the fast bowler in yourself, I want you to explain to our viewers the skill involved in what Siraj has delivered. Even if you look at this innings and this final test match, after the workload of four tests, he had the outswinger, he had his wobble ball, he had the Yorker serving him well. So spend a minute on the skill of Siraj, Harmy.
Well, the skill of the fast bowler is about character, and it's about your sort of your mental toughness, because when it's swinging and you've got the away swinging, you've got the in swinging, you've got the wobble seam that's moving, you don't really feel as though you're using energy. It's when the character of the bowler is when you're at Edgbaston and it's flat. You're at Manchester and it's flat. Lords doesn't give you a great deal. That's where the character of the fast bowler comes in. And then what you've got is you've got a skill set. And the skill set that Mohammad Siraj has got, he has got a huge amount of energy. He's got, in international cricket, you've got everything you need, because you wouldn't be playing there. You wouldn't have the ability. So he's got the ability, but for me, it's the character that he's shown. And in that last 45 minutes, he had the ball swinging. So what you have to do then is adjust your lines to make sure that it's off stumps in the game, because anything wider than off stump and it's swinging away, especially with bowlers, they can throw their hands in it. And I thought his lines and his lengths to still be able to have the sort of mental fortitude and the character to hit them lines and lengths to make sure that he was still relevant at making sure England batters were playing in areas he wanted them to play. I think that's what stands him apart from any other bowler in this series over the course of, like you said, 180 odd overs. And that for me is more than anything else, because when you get towards the end of a game and you get bowlers in and the ball's moving, your adrenaline starts pumping. And I think the biggest thing for me, even the character of Mohammad Siraj, is when it's not like that. He stood up for his captain every single time. 5 foot at Edgbaston when it was flat. This one tonight, I don't think he would have used a great deal of energy himself from this one isolated incident, because the situation was giving him energy. But for me, what he's getting the energy he's given his team when it was tough, really tough times throughout the series, for me, is why he is definitely being one of the very, very best players in this series.
Yeah, it is one of possibly the great series bowling displays, especially by a visiting bowler in England. And when you think of those in history, the mind goes back to Shane Warne in the 2005 Ashes. And it is the cruel nature of sport that despite his 40-plus wickets, the lasting memory of Warne from that Ashes is the dropped catch of Kevin Peterson at the Oval. It's almost poetic and fitting that the lasting memory of Siraj from this series won't be the drop catch of Harry Brook on day 4 at the Oval.
Yeah, and like I said before, that's the one that I was hoping that for Mohammad Siraj, that was not going to be the case, because, like I said before, the Lord's moment when you're last out and everybody looks at the last wicket, because that's the triumphant winning moment, and it's you standing with your head down and shoulder slump, that you felt as though you've let your team down, and then you drop that catch when Harry Brook's on 19. So to see him hit the wicket of Atkinson right at the very end, I think that was a fitting way to end what has been an unbelievable series. Teams have gone toe to toe. It's like two heavyweight boxers slugging it out, and the person who has probably been asked to go, so far and deep into sort of character has been Mohammad Siraj, and for him to be the winning wicket, and for him to be the triumph and the celebration at the end, I think this series deserved a draw. And I think the best person finished the series with the winning moment, because Siraj has been, I think, head and shoulders above any other bowler on show.
While we're talking lasting images, and there are deeper things to dive into, but on the subject of lasting images, I want to move to another pacer for a very different storyline, because sport at its finest is a triumph of human spirit. And Chris Woakes, in walking out and partnering Atkinson at the end, is a memory that will last long in the minds of everyone who's seen this game.
Yeah, it will. It will, along with the mental strength of Wokes wanting to make sure that his team give every sort of ounce to force the victory. Rishabh Pant did it in Manchester, and it's hard because he played professional sports, so he's trying to work out whether he bats right-handed or bats left-handed, try and protect. Seen him running, he was having a real struggle. So yeah, there was no surprise that Chris was going to come out and try and fight to the bitter end for his team to try and get them over the line. And again, it will just highlight what this series meant to both sides. It highlights what this series has been for both sides. And it shows you what Test cricket really means to individuals. You know, this franchise world that we're all in. This is Test match fortitude, and this is mental toughness. And Chris Wokes showed a different side to that because he showed bravery. He showed a huge amount of bravery to come out and run between the wickets to make sure he wasn't on strike. And then if he had to face a ball, put his whole career on the line, because it is his career. He's 37. He's not, I mean, one like big knock on that, and that is impossibly done anywhere. But put his career on the line to try and fight every tooth and nail, as much as Mohammad Siraj was fighting at the other end. I mean, that took some courage and some bravery, and fair play for Chris to come out and try and fight for England all the way to the bitter end.
All right. Now to the subject of this final test. Doesn't feel a long time ago that England were 300 for 3 and this chase felt done for all money. So where did it unravel, and how much is it going to rue England that the position that Root and Brook put them in, they weren't able to see the job over the line?
I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and Harry Brook will look back at it. It was a magnificent 100, both him and Joe Root. And that was a turning point. I mean, you know, just after tea on day four, this test was done and dusted. It was England 3-1, and England were going to celebrate what was be a magical series win. And then, I mean, Brook, he plays such a high-risk game. I've got no problem with Harry Brook playing shots like that. I really don't. I think if you're going to marvel in some of his six hitting, I think you have to, unfortunately, take. I played with, you know, one of the greatest at that, Kevin Peterson. You know, he would get caught out, and everybody would go, well, why did he do that? You're thinking, hold on, if you're going to celebrate the way he played up to that point and getting 100 and, you know, standing ovation, you have to, unfortunately, take the dismissal because of the high risk nature that his natural game gives him and possesses. So I thought at 300 odd for 3, that's it, game over. His dismissal probably started the ball rolling. I thought Bethel's dismissal was a really poor one for England. That was pressurised situation. You don't have to come running down the wicket. And people might say, well, what's the difference between that and Harry Brook? The difference of that is the game's getting closer towards the end. You know, you're in the infancy of your career, and you've got Joe Root at the other end, who is 100 not out. And I think that dismissal really started the ball rolling for England to let India back in. And then India took, you know, a huge amount of energies from the back end of that. So I think them two dismissals, a Harry Brook dismissal and a Jacob Bethel dismissal, I think were real turning points in this contest for why India became 2-2.
Did you sense there was a lack of impetus, for want of a better word, in that passage after tea? Because Siraj and Prasidh, between them, bowled 8 overs going at less than a run an over.
I thought they bowled really well. I thought the clouds came in. I thought the lights came on. And this is Test cricket. This is why it's the best format of the game, because, you know, you enjoy when Harry Brook and Joe Root are going at 6 and over and the ball's flying about everywhere. But then you have to give, you know, respect to the bowlers when the ball is in the bowler's favour. And I think that is the beauty of Test match cricket. For between lunch and tea, I mean, it was going to be finished at 5 o'clock and England were going to be comfortably home. And then all of a sudden the atmosphere changed. And then that gives energy to bowlers. And bowler starts putting the ball in the right area. That's Test match cricket. And if you're not, you know, mentally up to it, you're not strong enough to withstand the challenges of Test match cricket, then, you know, then you have to look within inside. And I think when Brook got out, I think there was a huge amount of pressure on Bethel. And then when I thought Root got a little bit bogged down in the dismissal of Root, and then it was game on. And that little passage there coincided where the ball was put in the right area because the atmosphere was starting to help the bowlers. So yeah, but these are not new to Test match cricket. These have been happening for hundreds of years. You have to respect when the bowlers in the ascendancy, and you have to also respect when the batter is as well.
Right. So if we now start zooming out on this whole contest, how do England view this series? One where they have eventually missed out on the opportunity for a first Test series win against India since 2018, up against a side which is in transition, up against a side which didn't at all points have its tactics firmly rooted in place. So where do England stand at the end of this?
I think at this moment in time, I think England will say it's been a great Test series to be involved in. It's been brilliant for Test match cricket, the way it's been played. Two very good teams going head to head. And probably the fair result was a draw. I think in a month's time, 2 months' time, England will have to pick an Ashes squad and an Ashes series. And then I think the ramifications of this drawn series will put a huge amount of pressure going into Ben Stokes' team going into Australia, because the run of score lines in the last 12 to 18 months for England, these are on paper, not actual. So people will look at it on paper and see it's been a draw. They won't look at the intricacies of what's been happening. So for me, I think in what it looks like now is two great sides had a real ding-dong battle, toe-to-toe, good series, and it's a draw. Now you're going towards Australia, and you've not won a series. You've had a drawn series against India, and that I think puts a little bit more pressure on the Bazball team going into what is going to be an even bigger pressurized situation, which is obviously the Ashes in November, December, and January.
What would you identify as the big areas of concern? There's a lot of time, but what are the things to look at for you?
Bowling. For me, it's the bowling. I think England need to go to Australia with a bowling plan of who's going to play where, and also, from a combinations point of view, what they actually need, because I don't think they got it right in England. I mean, to go into the last Test match with an attack, and yes, people will say, and I'm a big one for saying it, fast bowlers, you do get injuries. But you've gone into the last Test match not playing a spinner. Atkinson, who wasn't fit enough to play and hasn't played for quite a while throughout the summer, and not being able to play for even his county wouldn't pick him because they didn't deem him fit enough. Overton, who had only played one Test match and who had a huge amount of injury problems, who I don't think, has had the greatest Test match. And then you've got Josh Tongue, who looked very, very rusty, even though he got wickets in that. So I think when you break it down, England will say we picked the best team for the game that was in front of us, and we worried about the next one. And I think the worry about the next one, from a bowling attack point of view, with no spinner, a very inexperienced seam attack, and no Ben Stokes, it's probably cost them winning 3-1 to drawn 2-2.
On the subject of Ben Stokes and how his body is managed, can England, or do England need to be firmer with Stokes to avoid him potentially pushing himself towards an injury again?
I think there's two things in that. I think there's two things big time in that question, which is, do England, try and be firmer and look after Ben Stokes when he's needed to? And the second one, which I think is the most important one, because I think the answer to that one is probably no, because I think Ben Stokes is an all-rounder, international cricket, Test matches on the line. You've got to be fit enough to play in each one, and he is, and he bowled beautifully throughout these first 4 Test matches. The second point to that is, are we good enough from a bowling unit to make sure that we've got 3 frontline seam options and a spinner that can cause a problem in Test match cricket? And I think the answer to that is probably no at this moment in time. So as much as you want to be firmer with Stokes, you can't be firmer with Stokes because he's the only bowler, apart from Archer for me in this series, that's looked at international class. I think the rest have had good moments, but I don't think have created enough pressure to force the team to say, right, you pick me again next week. So as much as the Ben Stokes question is there, I think it's quite irrelevant. It should be looked at in a different way. It should be, can we get three frontline seamers, so Stokes is the fourth one, and a spin bowler to do a job, rather than, well, Ben Stokes is bowling a 10-over spell. Bowled a 10-over spell because, unfortunately, the bowlers at the other end haven't backed him up.
Yeah, his missing the last injury came on the back of the series where he's bowled more than any other series before. He's almost bowled as much in the 4 tests he played in the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy as he did in the last WTC cycle, all of it put together. And such a pity that he missed the finale of such a great series, because it was a series where we saw Stokes rediscover the bowler in him. He also started finding his batting mojo by the end of it.
It's a shame, a real shame, but I'd rather him push his body towards a point of injury because of a workload and his team contribution than to try and, like we have done for the last 3 years, try and protect him, that he is coming into the game with an injury. He's come into this series for me as fit as I've seen Ben Stokes, mentally as good as I've seen Ben Stokes, and what a performance he has. You know, he didn't play a great deal of cricket going into it. He got better with the bat as the series went on. And for me, other than the 2 times Archer played, he was the only bowler for England, I think, that looked international class on some very, very flat wickets. Atkinson bowled well at the Oval in nice conditions from a bowling point of view. But I'd rather have Stokes playing that way in the all-out, all-in, full-throttle Ben Stokes than I would have try and use them as the try to protect him in what has happened in years gone by.
Yeah, we missed Ben Stokes in the final test of this summer, but that takes nothing away. What a summer it has been, Harmy. One of the great test series, at least of the 21st century. And I say this knowing full well that it finishes on the day, 20 years from the day that Edgbaston test of 2005 began. You have played your part in an epic series. Where does this one lie for you?
I think it's just behind that. I think there's quite a lot of series that have gone down to the wire, and I think the reason why I say it quite be just behind that is not because I played in it, and not because I think the bowlers that are were on show in that series compared to the bowlers, glaringly different to the bowlers that are in this series. You look at the players that played in that series, especially from the Australia point of view, iconic players of McGrath, Warne, Ponton, Peterson on our side. These players were, stellar players, and they performed on the big stage. So for me, that series, it was a 2-1. We won by 2 runs and 2 wickets in the test match. I don't think 2005 has ever really, I don't think it's ever come into where you thought this series was going to go past it. But in isolation, this has been a wonderful, wonderful series with great moments, which will give us great memories, give us fantastic talking points in 2 teams, which I think should be immensely proud to keeping Test match cricket alive, because Shubman Gill has led his team brilliantly, brilliantly well, and a young side who are going to get better. And I think Ben Stokes has done exactly the same.
All right, so let me throw one last bouncer in your direction for this great series. So many memorable moments to pick from. What would you say was your favorite? Or I'll be a little kinder. Which were your favorites?
Oh, I've got them. I've got a few written down here. They've changed overnight, to be fair. So yeah, the last over at Lords. I think the last over at Lords, Crawley against the Indian team. Shubman Gill walking out on hat-trick ball. Joe Root 3 Test matches in 300s in a row, and that celebration towards Graham Thorpe was unbelievable. Stokes is 5 for 100, and again adding to it tonight, seeing Chris Woakes walk out to bat in a sling. But if I was to pick and highlight one, I did have, and I had it highlighted, and it was Zach Crawley against the Indian cricket team at Lords. Last throws of day 3, I think it was 7 minutes to get through 1 over. That was my one biggest and most memorable moment. But you know what? I changed it because Mohammad Siraj, seeing his face at Lords and then seeing his face at the Oval, winning the game for his team, having played 5 test matches, for me, that winning moment at Oval, Mohammad Siraj, that's my moment of the series.
What a great man, Harmy. That is special to hear. I thought you will have a bunch of English picks ready as your number one. But big on you to bring up Mohammad Siraj, one for the fast bowling team. That was a moment for the ages. Good on Siraj, good on you. And that is where we'll close the lid. Harmy, thank you so much. It's been beyond belief. We didn't think when this summer began. We were excited, but we didn't know how much it will give us. Thank you so much for giving us your company through the length of it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks to yourself as well, because I mean, it's been great catching up before and end of every test match, and it's been epic, each and every one, and it's been emotional to be in, and it's been an absolute joy. That test match cricket, wow, it's still alive.
It is alive, and it is still the best thing there is. Thank you so much, Steve Harmison.
Crypto Coach, CoinDCX. Learn करो, crypto करो.